If you clicked on this video, you're probably looking to buy a camera, or you just bought one, or you just want to learn something more. And the truth is, when I browse on YouTube for videos about camera recommendations, I see a lot of misinformation. And I'm not trying to say that other creators or YouTubers are making videos that are inaccurate. I just think that they tend to boast out technical information that beginners don't really know or they don't care about. And they often miss points that, in my opinion, are deal breakers. I'm going to show you how I choose my equipment and the considerations I would take if I were you before I buy something. And I'm gonna break that down into points and make it very simple for you to understand. And you're also gonna learn something, so it's probably worth sticking around for this video. Before we start, we need to understand one thing. Cameras are different and serve different purposes. I like to divide them into 3 different categories. Still cameras, these are cameras that are meant for photography. Video cameras, these are cameras that mainly serve video purposes and are way better at recording videos than they are at taking images. Which doesn't mean they're bad for photos. I meant as hybrid cameras, and these are very highly popular, and the majority of the models you know are usually hybrid, meaning that they're usually handled very well at both things. Now, if you clicked on this video, you are probably going to buy a hybrid camera. And the reason I'm telling you this is because if you wanted a video camera, I'm not the right person to make that suggestion for you. I do video myself, but I'm not a videographer. If that's what you're looking for, that's the wrong place. I'm sorry for that. And if you want a still camera, that is usually used by very professional people or people that are very specific in terms of the images they create. And that means that they're probably way more experienced than you are at the moment. That's probably not the right choice for you, at least to get started. So now we know that you're probably gonna get a hybrid camera. Okay, now that we said this and you know that there's 3 different types of cameras and we are going to focus on hybrid cameras, I need to make a note. The note is, by the end of this video, you will not have a specific camera model you should buy. The purpose of this video is for me to educate you into making an educated choice and be able to choose yourself what camera make and model is right for you. That means that I'm not going to push you the camera I use or the camera I prefer, but I'm gonna be very blunt and I'm going to tell you what I would do. So if you're ready, let's get into it. First point, and this is very important, is the more you spend, the better the camera you can get. And the lower you spend, the more similar different cameras are between each other. That happens because you're in the consumer base, and that's where there's the most competition for brands to be able to sell you their cameras. That means that all cameras on the $500 to $1,000 mark, very similar, and they produce very similar results. But that just makes it way harder for you to choose. So this is probably why you're watching this video and you want to make an educated guess and why you should learn to understand differences between cameras yourself. The sensor size is a big component of your camera and it drives the price of your camera dramatically. To understand how different sensors work, I have a simple way, so watch this. Okay, this is a very simple way for you to understand very quickly how different sensors work. This book represents a sensor. But the question is, what would happen if I'm using a different sensor? And this is exactly what the pink book is simulating right now. A smaller sensor produce a more zoomed in image simply because the sensor is smaller and it's able to reproduce a smaller piece of reality. I'm not trying to say that small sensors are better or big sensors are better, but they serve very different purposes. For example, if you want to do landscape photography, you might want a bigger sensor so you can take wider images. And if you want to take images of things that are very far away, you might want to consider a smaller sensor and use crop factor to your advantage. So take that into consideration. Great, so if you're here, you probably understood how different sensor sizes work and what effects they can have on your image. The cost of your camera will change dramatically because of your sensor. The reason is, the bigger the sensor, the more expensive it gets to create the sensor itself, but that's not everything, because big sensors require very big lenses in order to cover the big sensor. And that makes the glass in the lenses very expensive. And that's why those lenses can be dramatically more expensive. This is why the majority of the people are starting with APS-C cameras. These are usually a very good combination of image quality, sensor size, and lens price. Because yes, medium format lenses are expensive. And so are full frame lenses. So you might want to take that into consideration. And number 4 is, how compatible is your camera with hardware from different brands? A lot of people buy lenses that are made from a different brand than the brand of their camera, and they will adapt those lenses. Which is something I don't suggest, by the way, because I had tons of problems with adapters in the past. But if you want to do this, you need to make sure that you can actually do it, because that means that you have a way bigger pool of lenses you can choose from, and some of them might be a lot cheaper than the one made from the brand of your camera. That means that you might be able to save a lot of money and get almost the same results. Now, to be very specific, when I had to choose a camera, I realized that I could never buy a Nikon camera because Nikon was just not as compatible with all the hardware I already had in the past. While Sony, for example, in my case, was the most compatible brand with all the hardware I had. So when I had to buy a camera, I had to face a choice. If I wanted to buy a Nikon camera, I would have had to sell all my hardware and all my equipment and buy everything brand new again from Nikon, or from brands that made things specifically for Nikon, because all my things were completely incompatible with it. That obviously means, in my case, being a professional, that Nikon was completely off the chart for me. That would have been insanely expensive. And the reason I'm saying this is because how compatible the hardware you buy is with other brands, the easier it is to sell it. And that brings me to point number 5, which is in 2024, cameras are like phones. The camera you're looking to buy is very likely to not be your last camera, and you probably want to maximize the amount of money you can get back when you sell it in the future or when you sell all the accessories you bought for that camera. Also, if you're an amateur and you don't make money out of it, that means buying equipment that is popular or that people seek, either because they want to use it themselves or because they can adapt it to their own camera. That's just how it works. Canon lenses are basically the ones retaining the highest value and the easiest one to sell, simply because Canon is still the most used brand out there. The second one is Sony, but what a lot of people do is they buy Sony cameras and then they buy Canon lenses and they adapt Canon lenses to their Sony camera. Why do they do this, you'll ask me? Well, that's very simple. Sony lenses are way more expensive and Canon lenses are just way easier to find and way cheaper if you buy them used. That means that you can buy them used, save a lot of money and resell them one day, saving a lot of money again because you get a lot of money back. Point number 6 would be DSLR or mirrorless. But the truth is that in 2024, almost no one needs a DSLR camera. Those systems are very bulky and basically completely outdated. If you're starting out, mirrorless cameras are probably your best bet right now. They're great and you get to see the final image before you take it because the viewfinder is showing you exactly the image you will get. And that's something that probably changed the way I do photography, and I think it can help beginners to learn more and faster, making far less mistakes. But the bottom of the line is, beginner cameras nowadays are better than professional cameras from 15 years ago. Even your phone is better than professional cameras from 15 years ago. And people were doing incredible work back then, which you probably can't emulate when you're just starting out. That means that it's not your camera limiting you, but it's your experience. Don't spend days looking for the best camera you can get for your money. Just get a camera and start shooting. The rest will come. I'll see you guys in the next video.